All right, let's get started. So let's call this so the time is 7 o'clock on Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. I'd like to call the Active Transportation and Traffic Safety Advisory Committee to order. And I go through the land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands in which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well. All right, let's start over. The land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the, can you hear me, Klaus? Okay, town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands in which we live and work are the traditional treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and the waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty Number 13, as well as the Williams Treaty of 1923. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us to where we are today. Will help us walk together into a better future. Okay, so may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated? So I got Gino and second by Steve. Are there any comments on the agenda? No? Okay, so I call a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Okay, so that carries. Declaration of pecuniary interests in general nature, therefore. Are there any declarations of interest? No, so there are no declarations. So let's receive the minutes. 6.1, the Active Transportation and Safety Committee Advisory minutes dated March 27th. May I have a motion to receive the minutes? So let's go Steve and then Gino. Any questions on the minutes? No. So that carries. So, oh yeah, we should, any questions or comments? Nothing? Okay, so that carries. Let's skip. So let's go to 7.1, which is the one thing on the agenda here. So memorandum of traffic and transportation analysis, bike share feasibility study. May I have a mover and a seconder to put it on the floor for discussion? So let's go Klaus and then second by Steve. So does staff want to talk about the first? So we'll start with you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So we just have a very short but very informative presentations here. So here we have the bike share feasibility study that was done by WSP. So as directed by council at its meeting on May 23rd, 2023, the town has retained WSP to undertake a bike share feasibility study. Through the study, the project team has developed a bike share program and provided details on how the program could operate within the town. What is a bike share? So bike share was designed to allow users to make short trips around town. The bikes are available at any docking station in the town. It can be taken from any station and returned to any station within the bike share system. And the primary purpose of the study is to develop a bike share program to provide residents and visitors with a feasible mode that meets various travel demand while encouraging a healthy lifestyle. The program would play key roles in improving accessibility to major destinations, offering transit users with a solution to make the first and last mile of transit trips, encouraging locals and visitors to explore the town and increase the number of cyclists within the town. Next slide, please. The study recommends to implement the bike share program in 3 phases with a total of 31 stations. Phase 1 would be 1 to 2 year timeframe with a total of 9 stations, mainly centralizing within the downtown Promenade GO Station area. Phase 2 would be 3 to 5 year timeframe, would add another 9 stations to expand the coverage to other major corridor, transit entrance, trail entrance, and town hall. The last phase would be phase 3. The timeframe would be 5 year plus, with an additional 13 stations to further expand the program for townwide coverage. To encourage the success of the program, a flexible system should be maintained to allow for modification of the stations, including relocations, expansions, or reductions based on demand and feedback from the users. The study recommends that a partnership with one or multiple private bike share providers be pursued to provide bike share services to the town with little to no cost to the town. The type and number of bicycle will be determined in consultation with the selected operator. However, a combination of standard bike and e-bikes are recommended. The final slide is a map showcasing the potential locations of the docking stations, separated into phase 1 and 3, phase 1, 2, and 3. Now I'll just open the floor for open discussions.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Klaus?
Yeah, the standard. No,
Yeah,
no,
it's on.
now it's on. Yeah, the standard bikes. I went to a e-bike shop the other day, and some of those bikes have a triple bike situation where you have 2 wheels in the back with a carrier on the back. So you have basically a much wider bike than a normal or standard bike. How would that be respected? Is that being respected in here in some way, or was it respected?
So again, the type of bicycle hasn't been determined yet. So it's going to be in consultation with the selected operator. Once we.
Sorry, you're speaking too fast, Michael. I'm sorry. But
No, so as I said, we don't have so the study just look at from a high level feasibility perspective. So the type of bicycle and the actual number of stations it's going to be in consultation with the selected operator. So we haven't selected any operator yet, but it will be discussed at that stage. So the type of bicycle, the actual locations, etc.
I wasn't particularly worried about what we get out of the operators. My concern is how these bikes that are wider would be operating in the traffic patterns, like on the multi-use trails and on the side of the road. That is what I'm concerned about. Like, was that being discussed? Was that something that entered the consideration or whatever?
So again, we haven't gone into that detail in terms of the implementation plan yet. So that will be discussed once we have the selected operator selected.
It is my opinion that these types of principles should be, these types of considerations should be upfront, so we would know what to do with any suggestion that there would be wider ones among them and so on. It should be on the table with us before we ever get into negotiations. Otherwise, we're behind the 8 ball in terms of trying to resolve these things on the go. But it's a problem that we are aware of now. So, okay.
No, understood. But again, the whole purpose and the intention of the study is from a high level feasibility perspective to determine and evaluate if a bike share program is actually feasible within the town. The next phase will be implementations, and we'll determine again the locations, what type of bikes should be restricted or not at that stage.
And that would be before we talk to the potential operator?
So once we have so once we have a discussion with the selected operator, we'll come up with an implementation plan or back to to this group for review and for comments.
That I'm not entirely. No, this green thing wasn't on. No, I'm going to leave it at that. I believe this should all be clarified before you ask the operator for participation or have the contracts out for that. Anyway, my comments.
I just want to make one comment to Klaus quick. So that would be part of the RFP process. So when they're writing the RFP, that's when you would drop those comments in. So when people are bidding on it, you know your scope of bid and what products are coming. So right now they've just done the study. And then the next phase would be if it gets approved to go to RFP, and then it would, once it goes out for tender, build that into your tender document.
That would mean we would have given some thought to this before we get into a contract situation. Okay.
Steve?
The chair. I don't know where to begin with this. Ironically, I was just in New York City on the weekend, and we did use the City Bike share in Manhattan when we were there. And if you want to see the full spectrum of usability for something like this, then that's where you need to go. You need to go to a big city, or even down in Toronto. The feasibility of this is amazing. It's awesome. Like there's no doubt that when properly implemented with the right active transportation infrastructure associated with it, I'll come back to that in a second, and the docking locations well thought out in opportune locations. So for example, we weren't even staying in Manhattan. We were staying on the New Jersey side for this work that I do down there. We stayed on the New Jersey side. We took the ferry across the new East River, sorry, the West River, West Hudson River, it lets you off in like Midtown. And there was a massive docking station there for city bikes. And you get off and you just jump on the East Side Bikeway, and you can go north, you can go south. We rode to meet friends down in Soho for dinner, and then back to the ferry and took the ferry across. It's magical when it all works out like that. We were actually riding along on the bikeway. It was gridlock traffic on that East Side Highway. And we were West Side Highway. We were driving along, and we were definitely moving faster. All the cyclists were moving faster than the people in the cars. So where I'm going with this is, when rolled out and when it's applied, it can be a brilliant solution to moving people around other than in a personal automobile. My personal feeling, I'll make my comments about where I feel about this before I get to some questions for you, Michael, is that I don't think Aurora is ready for this. And we would need to see a lot of the active transportation master plan physically implemented before we would even consider doing this. We could do this, we could spend money on it. My question, Michael, will be about money when I get to it. But what we would do all this, and the bikes would just sit there and they wouldn't get used. Motorists and taxpayers would abuse, be going and asking questions like, why do we spend all this money on this? They're not getting used. The bikes might get abused. I've seen it elsewhere where that is. My question, Michael, is on the costing side. In your slide, you said the bikes and all that the actual implements are provided with little or no cost. How does that work? Like what would the town be on the hook for? And then what is the provider, on the hook for. I know it's a pay as you go model in terms of, like, for example, the city bikes are through the Lyft app. It's absolutely brilliant. You scan the bike, 2 strokes on your Lyft app, and away you go. Like that's all you have to do.
So the recommendation from the study is to partnership with a private or multiple private operator. So the recommendation is to allow the private operator to station their bicycle within the town right away in exchange of the operating bike share system. So it's going to be privately owned, privately operated, and that's the recommendation from the study. Now, the next phase after the feasibility study would be to go out for a request for information to see if there's any interest from the private operator to participate in the program and partnership with us. So that's going to be the next steps. So at this stage, I don't have any further information.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
And just addressing a bit of what Klaus was talking about. Again, I noticed with the city bikes, there were 3 in New York City, in Manhattan. There were 3 different kinds of bikes. There was sort of a regular bike. There was a bulkier, almost sort of bike you could use to transport like stuff around, like you could go shopping with it. It had the big carrier in the back, and then they did have e-bikes. And they were all costed out differently on the Lyft app. So again, whenever we get to an RFP and what the needs are, I would suspect that we would ask for whatever our particular needs would be in Aurora.
All right, thanks, Steve. I know, Gino.
I'm on finally. So congratulations. I'm glad to see that you're moving forward with the program. Just on a personal note, I think, it'll be interesting to see what feedback you get from the program. My personal opinion, again, with Steve, is that it's too small. You may have to look at doing something jointly with a neighboring municipality that I know that is looking also to do something, and there might be more advantage by getting some, because again, at the end of the day, these companies are in the process of wanting, to generate revenue. They're not just going to come here and put bikes wherever we ideally put it. I looked at the locations, I printed them out because I was quickly looking at them this afternoon at lunchtime just to see some of the locations. You ideally, when I think of, where do we want to kind of see this, I'm thinking GO Station. But then I'm thinking, okay, but we don't have infrastructure, which is what we discussed, as a priority. So to me, it's kind of, okay, are we putting the cart before the horse here? So I think you kind of, if you want to go out, I'm not saying no. I think this is great that you move forward with it, but I don't think you're going to get many bites, to be honest with you. I don't think the numbers that I see will generate, I may be wrong. I mean, I don't know the industry that well, but I think you do need to, the operators are looking to make money. They're going to invest in it. And which brings me to my second point, the locations that you picked. Okay. Again, they shouldn't impact any existing pedestrian sidewalks, but I'm looking at, they're going to have to create. And again, I'm blessed. My daughter's going to Laurier and Waterloo, so I see them all over the place. I also see them downtown Toronto. You're going to need concrete pads to kind of locate these things. So my first question to you is, will the town of Aurora be constructing these pads? Is that part of the RFP? Because these locations that I see, okay, where are you going to place them, right? Without them impact. If you look at these, there's a stand, okay? And there's a bike attached to it, okay? So yeah, exactly. Right. And you also need places. Okay. It's not just one place. You're also going to need, like, it's great. You're going to put it at Aurora Go, but where in the residential areas? Because you're thinking if somebody's going to want to, get to GO Station, you know, they're going to be bike boxes. I'm going to speak to some the knowledge that I know. You know, there's bike boxes that are created by Metrolinx with the GO stations, right? They haven't really. The policy is similar to the subways to create the space for bike share, but not necessarily maintain or own it on the property. They will create a space for it to happen, but they want nothing to do with it. They will with bikes, creating the bike box. You'll see it in Aurora, you see it in Maple, you see it at Rutherford. Actually, you'll see it really nicely in Rutherford GO. So first question is, will they be required to create the concrete pads? I think that needs to be part of the RFP. The second question is that these areas, some of the areas that I've picked, it looks like, they shouldn't be areas where we're looking to reconstruct or rehabilitate. We should do that first before you want. And again, this gets into, let's build the facility there. You kind of want to pick something that's conducive, a location where we've identified is at a bike lane, and get the line marking done. Really, I think that to be successful, and again, part of the campaign is wanting them to advertise this. The other thing you noted in the report that I saw was said all year round. I don't think that's going to be feasible. I'm sorry. No, I went to U of T and I always saw cycling down, on St. George, but I don't see that happening anywhere in York region unless, we have some universities. I think universities generate a lot of that, movement. I don't see that happening. So any of the recommendations that I would put in is it's here for 6 months or whatever when the snow melts, do the sweeping, whatever, and then they can come back in. It really shouldn't be the 365 day, because nobody's going to take it in the middle of winter and then they're going to get damaged. And I don't think the operators are going to want it. I don't know if it's in Toronto. I've never really paid attention. I haven't been down in the other and paid attention anywhere. And if you go out to market, see what bite you get. But I think you should give consideration to also with the neighboring municipalities, because I know they're also investigating and maybe there's opportunities to leverage that to get maybe, you have a deal. Again, it's not just Aurora, but maybe you want to commute down to, I don't know, south of us to Markham or Vaughan, and maybe they have. I know York Region is not investing in the program, but I know other municipalities are in York Region. So I think we should take advantage of that, right? To kind of leverage it. See, by all means, go out just to see what bite, but don't be surprised if people say no. But I think, again, getting back to, we also need to do our due diligence, okay? And I wanted to speak about this, about other business, and we talked about the active transportation master plan. And I know I asked to speak at council, and I don't know if it's gone. I just haven't had the time really to look. But I think what's important that the plan that we've moved forward with is the implementation. And I really need to understand, and I didn't go through it thoroughly, and I should, right? Based on what you've passed the DC by, how much of the plan is DCable and how much of it is where we're going to have to get grant money? Because it's not going to get built unless there's some funding available. That's the reality we live in. And I know there was a lot that was missed in the DC study. I'm curious as to, and again, that'll have to go, I think, I always forgot, again, we have to put something through our counselor to Gallo to kind of move you guys to do a study, or we can speak offline. I think we need to kind of understand that, because I hate to say this, at the end of the day, it's always about money. Okay. I live in that life and everybody says, oh, you do this great master plans, but if there's really no there's no money behind it, we're not building anything. Okay. I hate to say it. DCs, I hate to tell you, we're done in Aurora. There's nowhere else to grow unless we want to start redeveloping and having 60-floor condo towers that I see happening on Yonge Street. Okay, there's your DC money. It's not going to happen. If you look around, it's almost fully developed here. There's not much left to develop. We're landlocked here. So, I'm not going to speak to other things that potentially could happen, but I think that's the reality we live in right now. And I think it's important. Our bike share is, to me, almost a subset of really our focus should be on building really the infrastructure first. This to me is almost second. I'm not saying we don't move forward. See if there's bike. Maybe we can do it. Maybe, maybe we can put something in it that they build some of this for, but I doubt it because I know the costs associated and I don't think we're big enough. They're not going to build infrastructure. I may be wrong, right? Again, no one does this, for free. They're in it to make some money, right? And again, you're going to have to they're going to look at this and say, what are the potential trips? What are we going to charge? What's the general revenue? Is it worth our while? This is what they're going to do. That's why they're going to say, and you're going to go out to open market or, go and just see if there's interest in even participating in it. And really that's my comment, some of my comments, but the concrete pad, I'm curious as to, when picking those locations, is the intent that the provider would create that concrete pad in order to place, or is that something the town, because that's a cost to the town to put that extra pad in? And again, you have to consider all the other construction work potential that, again, I haven't looked at this. I haven't seen your proposed 10-year plan. Is that, is it in conflict with some of these locations? So
if I can say something, can I say something about that, the location? It's Lil.
Yeah, go ahead.
I used to work on the admin side of a women's shelter that had families and high school students and so on in it. And I'm thinking specifically of Belinda's Place, which is at Yonge and Sawmill Valley Road. So I feel quite strongly that if we can make a recommendation but have the provider pay for that pad or a concrete slab, that it would be as close as possible. If we did it close to Belinda's Place, or even on the Aurora side, as close as possible to there, that would hit 3 or 4 schools easily, the vicinity of schools. And I know a lot of the students actually go from the west side of Yonge. They travel from there by foot, even in winter, to Industrial Parkway to get to the youth town meetings, the youth engagement committee that meets in the family leisure complex. It's very hard year round to make that walk. So having the somewhere near Yonge, but having it as close as possible to Belinda's Place, the women's and family shelter, I think would be a wonderful location. And it is also quite high density around there, with a high school right beside it, basically, or across the street.
Do you want to make a comment or anything back against statements, or is there anything just?
Yeah, because Gino was talking about asking where the locations will be. If the town can make a recommendation that it be somewhere around Yonge, as close as possible to Belinda's Place, because Belinda's Place is actually between three high schools, 3 schools. We have St. Anne's, we have St. Andrews, we have Mulock, and then there's another school as well on the other side. So I think that would be a really ideal location.
Okay, thank you. Do you want to, Klaus, do you want to go to Klaus, and then we'll go to you for comment to tie everything up?
Yeah, I'm in contact with both Steve and Gino relative to infrastructure. My concern is that we're putting heavy emphasis through this project on bikes. We also have other non-motorized vehicle transportation, these chariots, for instance, that are on the horizon. It's not just Transonic who has them, they're to be had elsewhere. So we are determining that the bike is going to be our answer, and I believe there's a lot of value to that. But we also should be knowing how we are going to accommodate the various forms of non-motorized traffic that can, without license, be on the road. Bicycles should be on the road, naturally, and so on. If we don't have an idea of where we want to put our emphasis, what is the most feasible way of possibly getting cars out of the center of Aurora, if we don't have a good idea about that, then we're putting all our baskets into this one, all our apples into this one basket. And there may be other things that need to be considered, and it might have to be a way of constructing infrastructure that takes care of more than one of these things. And that should be in place before we go to an outside operator to run bicycles and so on, like the bicycle system, basically. I think we are a little bit ahead of something that should be considered first. And I've mentioned also I think Larry talked about schools and so on. I mentioned that we should be looking at what are the best access corridors for schools. We should be looking at the catchment areas of schools to figure out how we can get the students to schools without the taxi business and school buses possibly. And all of that should be considered before we get into, a contract with a provider for bicycles and so on. I think we need to do more work ahead of this. We don't have a lot of money. As Gino said, we are a small municipality. We are running out of DC sources. We can only do so much. So we have to be cautious about spending infrastructure money on something that is limited to one mode of transportation, when we should in fact consider multiple ways of getting at this and go on from there. Then we have this. So this is a little bit premature in a way that Aurora can go ahead with it. It's infrastructure bound. Anyway.
Thanks, Close. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna make a couple comments on it, and then I'll let you close out, and then we'll sort of go from there. I think that's probably easier. That way you heard everybody, then you have a chance to come back, because a lot of what we're saying is overlapping. So, for myself, I like the program. I think the program's great. I think there's some meat here in what WSP has put together in terms of the structure of it. I agree with everybody else in terms of let's not put the cart before the horse. Let's look at the infrastructure and do it all together. Because if you don't do that, then your costing model gets thrown out. I like the costing model in here because you're really downloading it to the operator of the bikes. From what Gino said, as long as you build in the pads, and you also look at the electricity, who's doing the hookup and the costing of the electricity to it. The one caveat that I would throw in there is the liability. Who owns the liability? You want to make sure that the town's protected at all costs, because if there's an incident or accident with one of the bikes on town property or in around the roads, if the town is tied to it, is the town liable? Where's the liability sit? I do know that Toronto police arrested somebody last week on an e-bike that was impaired and charged them with impairment of a motorized vehicle. So the rules are changing in terms of e-bikes, and they're starting to crack down. So we need to make sure that the town's covered from a legal standpoint before we move forward with any of it, or else we're just going to be throwing money out to litigation. From Gino made the point of neighboring with a partner in terms of a neighboring community beside us, whether it's Newmarket, Richmond, Oak Ridges, wherever it goes. In here, you said that they had ability to ride on the trails. The trail system will take them out of our town. So we need to make sure that we're closing that gap, whether we geofence, whether they end up geofencing the area and you can't ride out of town, or whether we neighbor with somebody or else. There's going to be an associated cost, and what's going to happen is the operator is going to end up shutting down. And then the other thing is, when we talk about the infrastructure of the roadways, the trail system, everything else, if we don't get that sorted out, we're just going to create a congestive mess on every piece of infrastructure. If we have lots of these bikes roaming around, now 9 times out of 10, we all know bikers don't really follow the traffic rules as they're prescribed. So then you're going to have a lot more complaints from residents and people within the community trying to get through busy corridors, and the bikes are in the way, or the bikes are doing something they shouldn't. So you're going to have a bigger headache on your hands than it's, it's going to offset the good thing that you're trying to do. If we have the infrastructure built, then that all goes away because they have a designated spot to be. So those are and then the other thing is, the one other point I have is limiting the speed on the e-bikes, because the e-bikes can go faster than the designated road speed. So you need to make sure that where they are, that they're limited, because again, you're going to fall back into the liability piece. So okay, I'll let you take it from there. Oh, sorry. Gino will always have one more. Let's go to Gino.
Oh, okay, I'm good. So just quickly, what brought up to my mind is, did Aurora pass a bylaw? Because there is concern now, not only with e-bikes, with scooters, you name it, especially on MUPs. It's just a nightmare, and people are, especially where there is no sidewalk and you're sharing. So I know neighboring municipalities have passed bylaws saying what, can and cannot be, on the boulevards. And I think you kind of need to look at and mimic that, because that right now, there are so many things that are hitting us in terms of, because it's not just the bike share, it's everything else too that people are personally buying. We were just discussing at dinner about getting an electric bike, and I think now the TTC, I think there was a recent fire with them, with outlawing them in the subway, right? Because they caught fire. So there's a lot of concerns, and I think, like I said, making sure we have a bylaw that really speaks to where these, because you will start as densities increase. I know there's not a lot of people walking, but as it does, and you see more of this people are going to be on the sidewalk. Okay. But again, the sidewalks are meant for people to walk. And this is the issue that we have. This is why I'm saying we need to build the cycling infrastructure. If that's where it needs to go, then we need to build it. Don't introduce this. Are they on the road, or are they in the intent they can use MUPs? What's the bylaw say? Because I think we need to be clear, and then we need to also communicate. That was part of the discussion we had. We need to communicate to Aurora, on the website, by e-blast, if people still getting mail, whatever, and you send it by mail. But you do need to educate, and whether it's the targets, even at the schools, to educate them. I think it's critical, because we can pass whatever bylaw, but if people are not aware of it, right, I think that's critical. And because again, the boulevard is shared with all users, and we have to remember that there are multiple users, and the elderly hate scooters. I'm going to just tell you that right now. Those people come because they don't ring, they don't, just whip right by, right on your left side, right side. So I just raised that. That was just my concern. Bylaw.
Klaus, you.
Yeah. My understanding is that these the e-bikes and e-bike equivalents are limited to 32 kilometers an hour. Whether that's in law or not, and this is what I was told at the shop where they sell these things. So I'm gathering there's some substance to that, but you can stop at 32 kilometers an hour. You can stop on the dot, which is important. So if you have one of these Cerets or whatever, or e-bike, then the e-motorbikes, they can't go over 32 legally without license plate. Okay.
Go ahead, Steve.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, to Michael, you mentioned something that York Region is not interested in this or not involved in this. And just going back to what Gino said, and also, I don't know if I should say this, but I did speak to someone when this motion came up at council. I was actually reached out to, and we had the discussion that something like this, and I agreed that this would be best. There's 1.2 million people in York Region, that probably from a scale perspective and an operator perspective, like the whole of York region would be better. Yes, it's going to be in small little nodes like an Aurora or a Newmarket or a Richmond Hill or the certain municipalities in York region, but it would probably be better across the whole of the York region. So I'm just looking for clarity in terms of what you said there, Michael. And now that we have this, should we be going to York Region Council or other municipalities in New York region and say, hey, like we need this across the region?
Okay, Michael, let's go to you for a comment.
Well, so first of all, thank you very much for all the feedbacks. They're all great. I'll try my very best to respond to most of it. So maybe I'll just go back to Steve first. So in terms of the York Region program, in discussion with York Regional staff, they are currently not in the position to implement a region-wide bike share program. Now, I do. My understanding is State of Markham is implementing I think a pilot program within a small area. I think they call it demonstration zone within the downtown Markham area, just to test out the micromobility device, the interest from the residents, and sort of the impact. What can they learn from it? City of Fawn, to my understanding, based on my discussion with staff, is there's no program in place, and there's nothing on the table as well to further explore. And it's a similar story with other municipalities within the regions that currently there's, again, except for City of Markham, there's no other municipality within the regions currently have or will be implementing a bike share program. And regarding the bylaw, so the town of Aurora hasn't passed any bylaw. We haven't participated in the province 5-year pilot program for micromobility. So the rules of from the Highway Traffic Act still apply. So cyclists, bicycle will require to be either on the multi-use path, cycle tracks, cycle lanes, or around the road. So on the sidewalk is not permitted. Now, is that going to change based on the feedback that we got from the private operator? I don't have the answer right now, but it really depends on. So a lot of elements will really depend on what kind of interest that we get from the private operator, what kind of feedback that we get from the private operator, and how we can adjust the program to implement to actually implement the program for the town. So regarding the bylaw, if the interest is to have both e-bike and standard bike, then we have to look into some bylaw amendment to adjust that. But if we look at just standard bike, then we may just the bylaw might not need to be amended at this moment. Regarding the costs, so again, the locations that you see in front of you today, they are more high level locations. The project team went out. They look at each of the locations, especially for phase 1 and phase 2. They did went out and do a site visit just to make sure that they are actually implementable and feasible to put the docking station. And in terms of if there's any infrastructure that require, for example, concrete pad, my understanding that will fall under the town if needed. But again, the locations that see in front of you, they are high level. So not all location might be implemented. There might be more, there might be a little bit less. Some of the location might be adjusted. And again, I think if we look at a plan in such a way that we are also trying to see if there's any interest within the town for bike share program and how we should operate a bike share program. So if we were to go ahead with phase 1 and phase 2, or phase 1, we could go ahead with phase 1, see what kind of feedback that we get from the user, from residents, from businesses, from visitors. And those locations, they may be adjusted. There might be more stations. We might relocate certain stations to a different area. It might have an impact in terms of how we implement phase 2 and phase 3. in terms of location, type of bicycles. So I think we, like, again, the whole purpose of the study is to determine if a bike share program, if it's feasible to even further explore. And the next step will be to see if there's any interest from a private operator to partnership with the town to implement a bike share program. Now, I certainly hope that there's interest, but if in the case that we don't, we get some feedback from the operator, and we need to have an internal discussion and then come back to council with a recommendation how we want to proceed. So again, if there's any concrete implementation plan, it will go back to the group for review, discussions, get the feedback before we actually going to go out and do the construct anything or put any program down. And in terms of the all year round, I think that's a great point. But again, I think that will be determined from the private operator if they have any interest to have it all year round or not. If they see the feasibility of having the program run all year round, or if they see it more beneficial to have it just 6 months of the year. Again, that will be detailed in the implementation plan.
Mr. Chair, may I ask something? It's Lil.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Just following up, Michael, thank you very much. I'm just wondering if it's possible for them to do a mixed station. What I mean is e-bike as well as standard bikes, and then have the standard bikes year round and e-bikes not year round, or vice versa. The reason why I ask is because I've had experience. I've known many families that have had experiences. I've sat on committees or councils with both Catholic and public boards, and I have seen so many issues with a lack of busing that's available, especially in the public board for families. Sometimes even when they are more than 6 kilometers away from school, where the kids were denied busing. They're really reining in and surveilling that with the students because they don't want to pay for the busing. So for those families, especially that are going to the special program schools like Wellington Public School, that are going to schools like soon St. Maximilian, Newmarket High, and Sacred Heart, those AP program schools, they attract a lot of students who are further than 6 kilometers and have a problem when they're denied busing. And I can guarantee you there are people who are denied busing even at a pretty reasonable distance. So I think if we could somehow consider that, that those students, that would be great. Luckily, St. Max is very close to the Aurora Go, so that would capture maybe some of the students who may need to ride a bike at times, especially when they don't have a ride available through parents. But there are a lot of other schools that have regional programs. So Sacred Heart, Newmarket High, St. Max have regional programs, and Wellington Public School is one of the schools that has their the gifted program there. So they have people, they draw people from very far away as well. That's why I'm going back to, if we could have something year round, and I don't know if that would mean having a mixed station, if that would allow for something to be available year round, that would be great.
Thanks. Gino, do you want to make a comment? You had your hand up? Yeah.
So I'm quickly going to chime in. I like, again, if you're looking to make it year round, you definitely have to get Public Works involved, especially as it relates to snow clearing and to York Region if it's on a regional road. I'm building transit, and what I hear, Lily, is that this is more an issue for York Region Transit to provide better services to these schools, and whether it's a mobility on demand program or something. I think those things have to be investigated. I think, again, having come out of Toronto, I moved up here in 2010. The first thing I noted is there's no transit here. I'm sorry, maybe I'm spoiled from the city of Toronto. And I think, I got around everywhere with public transit, and I feel for the students up here because there is really no we were spoiled, right? And the unfortunate thing, we were car focused for so long. But I think some of these concerns need to be raised to York. That's why they're here, York Region Rapid Transit Corporation. These are the issues that they look into, how to improve services. And I think you need to reach out to them and see if there's something that can be done to service some of the underserviced areas, because I really don't think anyone is going to want their son or daughter on a bike in the middle of a snowstorm going up to Sacred Heart. Sorry, I just don't see it. It's not going to happen. That's my.
Okay, Steve, you have a comment?
Just following up a little bit on what Lily was talking about. I'll come back to that in a second. On the weather, if current trends continue, winters are getting less and less severe. It's just the nature of what we're in right now with global warming, climate change. The season does extend, but it would be worth through you, Mr. Chair, to town staff in is this going to be seasonal? Is it going to be year round? Cycling has been sort of a summer, kind of thing. But really, there was maybe this past winter, there might have been 5 days through the whole of the winter where you wouldn't cycle. I wouldn't cycle, I'm pretty hardcore. I wouldn't cycle, on those days, but that's it. It was 5 days through the whole winter. I'm thinking there might be a tremendous opportunity here with the relocation for Williams High School. The school's under construction right now, so they could build a concrete pad. They could put in the station. Williams is moving to a community. I live in that community with huge numbers of people living within, I'd say, a 2-kilometer catchment area on either side of Bayview of the school. Now, does having stations all over the place to suit these people that might be better, with a bike, but it might just be sort of a general good test case to see if this would work at the school level to have a station there, and maybe some stations in set other locations so that students could ride to Williams School, those who would be further flung and further afield than just walking 500 meters or a kilometer. The new location for the school is it's pretty much everyone all the way over to the 404, the new catchment area, and then where I am in Wellington Lanes and up and down that sort of west side of Bayview. So that, again, I'm just sort of riffing on this, that might be something to look into with the relocation of the school. New location, they're building stuff there right now. Maybe the school board could get involved with this in a more proactive fashion. And I agree with the transit. It's other than Viva. I actually took Viva. I was meeting some friends downtown last week, and if you can get over to Yonge, it's fantastic. You can get to Finch Station from Yonge and Wellington in 40 minutes, and then you're on the subway. Now, a lot of people don't like sitting on a bus for 40 minutes, but the fact is, you get there in one piece. But the problem is getting to Yonge Street and to accessing that Viva awesome transit on Yonge. The York Region, I wouldn't even know how to do it from where I am, and probably walking over to Yonge is faster than the bus or biking over there. So, we could do way more with transit, and not necessarily on Yonge Street, but just feeding in, feeding to the GO train station, that last mile, that last 2 miles, and then feeding to Yonge Street. But that's a whole other discussion.
Michael, do you have any more? I gave you, sorry, I kind of loaded you with a list because I let everybody go and then we let you go. But do you have anything else to address?
So I'm just going back on my list. So one of the feedback was regarding insurance liability. So one of the recommendation is that when we explore a partnership with the private operator, that they will be fully insured. That to ensure that if there's any incidents that happens, that the town will have limited or no liability in terms of the operation of the bike share system. But again, that will be come into when we issue the request for information to gain interest, to see if there's any interest with the private operator, and those are the details that will be included when we discuss with the bike share program, the private operator. And I think one more comment that I want to make is which everyone here agree, is that is the town a little bit too premature to implement the bike share program. I would say it depends from your perspective. So again, when we look at the implementations, or when we look at the phases that's being recommended in the study, phase 1 is really centralizing within the GO station, downtown promenade, town hall area, or trail entrance. So we could select those we could strategically select the docking station within those area as to test the water, to see what kind of feedback we get, what kind of usage, what kind of adjustment or amendment that we need for the program before we enter into phase 2 and phase 3. So I think there's still I think the program is still feasible in terms of to implement phase 1 before we jump into phase 2 and phase 3 again. The program shouldn't be fixed. We shouldn't select an operator and say, okay, these are the locations for phase 1, 2, and 3, and that's it. But again, the idea is that we strategically select the location for phase 1. Hopefully that there'll be the highest usage, and then we'll gather information, gather feedback from the user, from the resident, from the businesses, and we'll go back and to see what kind of adjustment that we need to implement phase 2 and 3. It could be no adjustment, or it could be a minor adjustment. It could be a major adjustment. But at this stage, I don't know until we get the data, the feedback, the comments from the user. So yeah, so that's I guess that's the recommendation. That's the thought behind implementing into 3 different phases, as opposed to implement just one big program. The phasing will really allow us to look at what we can do to make sure the program will be successful. Thank you.
Yeah.
So just to follow up to that, so what you're saying is whoever we take on really in the app, there's going to be the opportunity, or going to be one of the requirements, that the users can provide a direct comment on it as part of their payment or post-payment, whatever of that. That's how you're going to gather that data. Okay. I'm curious how the areas you selected lines up with our phasing work in the active transportation, see if it lines up. Because again, I'm going to get back to it. To me, this is I'm not saying we shouldn't move forward. I think it's exciting, but I really think we need to build it, build it, they will come. We don't build it, and it's kind of hard because, how do we demonstrate to our residents that, yes, we did the master plan? And this is why I always say, okay, what's quick, what's easy? Line painting. It's cheap. You can do it if you have the space where it's not major. You like to do it with, road reconstruction included in there, but, sometimes you're looking for quick hits. And again, I just, I'm struggling with this one, but, I'm saying, yeah, go for it. See if there's interest. I'm curious if there's interest. I don't think we have the numbers, but that's just me again, based on what I see in the numbers. There might be small operators. And I guess one of my other question is, how many operators are there? Have you tested the market in here? Is there just one or two big players? Like, I don't know. Have you gone to Toronto? Because Toronto's only been the one that really has invested in this. And I'm assuming it's a big player, right? Like you say, you've spoken to who? How many do you know here in Southern Ontario that are actually? I don't know if it's the same player in Waterloo as it is in Toronto.
So we did look into the City of Toronto program, Hamilton, I believe Ottawa. So we look at try to gauge what kind of operator that they selected. But again, I think the intention of having the request for information, which is the next step, is to have an open market and see who will be interested to partner with us to implement the bike share program.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I am a little bit concerned when I heard about a station to phase one at Town Hall, because I don't see anyone going from Town Hall where the senior center is. I wouldn't see anyone using it daily from there. I really feel like we have to focus on the schools, especially the high schools, because those are the people like St. Max. They are all through the spring and summer. They're hosting almost every day competitions, and they have the track in the back. They have track and field, cross country. Like, there's so many things that are held there. That would be probably I don't know. I liked Steve's idea, like something, but that school's not built yet. But I feel like we need to find a place that is going to have daily use. My concern is that if we try phase one and it doesn't show any promising data, that we won't be able to attract a private operator again in the future. I really feel that this needs to succeed, because how are we going to get away from, we're trying to have less congestion. It's just terrible right now. I'm sorry. It's awful trying to get around our town. So if we can reduce the number of cars, we have to have this phase one succeed. It has to have daily users every day, and that will attract people or operators and the town to invest in phase two and phase three.
Okay, thank you. Close.
Yeah, I'm in support of what Lil just said. I think we need to involve the schools, period. Without the kids being involved in active transportation, we're not going to get anywhere in this town. So we have to start at that level. We're not going to get the parents to be basically the trigger to comprehensive active transportation. And that is what we need. Our streets are filling up. St. John's Side Road, Wellington, Yonge Street. I mean, we're not in Toronto yet, but I can see this coming. If we get a whole bunch of more people like subdivisions, we're going to have tie-ups in traffic and so on. So we have to find a way, and this is how I see the value of this program, this bike share program. We have to get a way to find our way to active transportation. And that is one way of doing it. So if there is an operator out there who is willing to try on this program in whichever way they want to finance it or whichever way we can live with, then let's go for it on a pilot basis. But I'm still believing we have to get clarity on what will be allowed where in town. Like if you're going to go along St. John's Side Road, where are you going to have the bikes on St. John's and holding up the traffic even more? Or are we going to build some off-road corridors that will accommodate these self-propelled means of transportation? I don't know. These are the things that need to be discussed. You can't just ignore the issues there. Maybe it's I'm in support of where that is happening and is heading, and I have put that on the table as well before, that we should pay attention to the catchment areas of the schools. We need to take advantage of that. And it will involve the schools, the town, the young people, and as a consequence, the parents of the young people. And bingo, we have a way of getting to transportation that is out of the car. Okay, let's leave it at that. Thanks.
All right, thanks, Klaus. I think to me, this is gonna go and come back and go and come back a few times. I think we have a lot of commentary which we've shared. And so I would say from here, let's move on, because we're just gonna keep going into. I think this is gonna keep. I think this itself, the bike share program, is gonna go and come back a few times. So we'll have lots of chance to have comments on it. So let's move a motion. If there's no other comments, so let's move a motion to accept the minutes of this and move forward. So all in favor? Anybody opposed? Okay, so that carries. So let's go into informational items. So there are none, so we can move on from there. Any new business? Does any committee member, anybody have new? Steve?
As this is the first time I've been involved with the committee, this is the first time for this committee operating. We're going into the season of more cycling. We've talked about the seasonality of cycling, and I'm wondering if there's anything, we can't do this, but I'm wondering with Michael here tonight and through you, Mr. Chair, if there's anything that we can do to incentivize people to ride more. And I'm thinking more of the businesses up and down the two main commercial corridors, Yonge Street and Bayview. There's many businesses there, and many people live within a 1 kilometer or 2 kilometer distance, an easy cyclable distance, from those commercial corridors to go shopping, to go to a restaurant, to go to a bar, to whatever. And hardly anyone does that now. So people tend to respond to some kind of financial incentive. If the businesses, were approached, this has been brought up in the past, informally in discussions I've had along these lines. If there's can be some kind of incentive, if someone shows up, at a bar on Bayview or on Yonge and they've arrived by bike, I mean, can something be done to incentivize people to ride more? To these locations. Now, I will say this, having lived, along the Bayview commercial strip for 20 years, is many of these places don't even have basic bike, like the basics of a place to lock your bike up. The Shoppers Drug Mart, the locking up place at the Shoppers Drug Mart on Bayview is a tree. Okay. That's it. Multi-billion dollars in profit by Loblaws, and I know it's not them, it's probably the landlord for the facility, the plaza, but there's not even a basic place to lock a bike up at Shoppers Drug Mart on Bayview. So it's kind of, again, we get back to this cart and horse thing, but I'm just wondering if there's something that can be done to incentivize these businesses to have basic bike infrastructure, like just a proper place to lock the bike up, and then B, to incent people to arrive, by bicycle. That's all. That was just my sort of idea for something that, potentially could be preliminarily worked on, through this summer. And then as we roll out the infrastructure, then we actually have people that are engaging with active transportation and using it.
Thanks, Steve. Close.
Yeah, on a different matter. I have in the past asked to have yield signs considered for four-way stop things. This, as far as I knew, was as much as has happened so far, but I've been advised that there is some study underway or some report coming forward on this subject. What I would like to know is, what report are we talking about? How did it get initiated? Like, what triggered that report? And when can we expect to have this report in front of us as a committee? And the clerk might be able to answer that, but
Thank you, Klaus, through you, Mr. Chair. So it came at the January 24th meeting. Klaus, you brought it up about stop signs versus yield signs. And at the time, the manager of engineering, Nancy Fleming, committed to bringing a memo back. Just to put it, I think we'll sorry. So it looks like it's coming back in September. And I think I think it's fair to say that staff will give their side of the opinion on stop signs versus yield signs, and the committee can provide their feedback to that. So it was initiated by you, Klaus. Nancy said it would come, and it'll come to the committee in September.
thank you.
Anybody else have any new items? No? Okay, so let's move on. Let's call an adjournment to this meeting then, if there's nothing new, nothing to add. So can I have a motion to adjourn? Steve? Second by Gino, and that's it.